right, I'm back in that same area that my last video was taken. It's my back food plot, and I have another food plot about 150 yards behind the camera, and I want to hinge cut and make a transition area that the deer will feel safe traveling from one food plot to the other. And the other thing it's going to do is I have a logging trail system that goes in a circle around this section of woods. This is about 25 acres or 20 acres. And this middle part, it's very open. I can almost see if somebody was in blaze orange on the other side of the trail. What this is going to do is it's going to bisect the middle of this 25-acre chunk and split it in half and get a thick chunk right through the center. So I have my four-wheeler. I was able to make trails with my tractor today. A couple chainsaws and wedges and everything, and I'm going to come through here first and take out the large trees. I already did a couple of these last weekend. I want to take out the big ones now before I hinge cut, because once you hinge cut and you have them all laid the way you want, and then you say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to come and take out this maple tree because I don't have enough sunlight getting to the forest floor to let those hinge cut trees grow, because if you don't have enough sun, they're going to die. And you already have them hinged, and then you drop a big tree, all that's going to do is destroy what you've already hinge cut. It's going to smash into them, break them, and stuff. So the tricky part is to come in here, and it's kind of hard for me to come and just cut these nicer trees down. But you know, I didn't buy this land just for the wood value or for maple syrup. I did it mostly for deer hunting. So I want this land to be, you know, good for deer hunting, and it's too open right now. So I'm going to have to sacrifice some trees to open up the canopy. So I'm trying to take the dead ones, and there will be some that are going to be nice trees, and I'm just going to have to drop and use for firewood. So some of these hard maples. Food plot is here. If I pan over, the other food plot is about 150 yards that way, and I do have a tree stand right here. Not that that can't move. My plan is when I set that tree stand is to make this transition go right past that stand. I like that spot because I had looked at all the trees, and it looked like that would be a good spot to cut the trees around it. My tree stand is right behind me. I'm going to hinge to the left of it. First, I'm going to take out the big trees, then I'll hinge cut. And to the right of it, there's a lot of nice, larger, hard maple. And I would like to get a tractor trail large enough for my tractor to get on this side. And then I'll be able to pick up maple syrup and also get back and grab firewood from both sides if there's any trees that come down or that I can cut that have bad spots, whatever, in future years. So there will be a nice open tractor trail on the right connecting the two food plots. And on the left-hand side, there will be a nice thick edge where the deer will feel safe during the daytime, and I'll have a nice trail going through that thicket. And on the right-hand side now, with that tractor trail, there will be a little less foliage, and that's the south side, which will thicken up the hinge cut area because there will be more light coming in. So that is the plan. So now I'm going to walk through here and pick out some trees and drop them. The tree stand is right there, and it's actually kind of leaning toward the tree stand, but I think I can place this tree over here. It's too large to hinge cut. You can see how big it is compared to the chainsaw. So I'm hoping to brush it and take it down right through there. that tree stand there, and we got that tree to drop through here. Some more brush in front of this tree stand, which I'd like to make a little bit of a no-go zone for the deer. So when they travel from this food plot, they have to split and go around this tree stand. And again, like I said, I'm going to transition hinge cut on the back side of that tree stand. And on this side of the tree stand, there's going to be a tractor logging trail. So I would imagine that they would go on the far side and stay in the thick cover. Attempt to hinge cut this maple tree right here. It's a little big from what I've experienced to hinge cut, but I do have a bunch of small trees right where I can brush it through, and then that'll slow the rate of fall, and hopefully it'll stay together. That's really important, that you soften the fall of the tree. So I'll attempt to do it. If it breaks off, not a big deal. I'm getting more sunlight to these other smaller trees that they're going to brush through. Hopefully they don't completely break and fall off. But anyway, those I will be able to hinge cut because they're of the right size. And then taking out that crown will let in a lot more light, and also I'll have a little bit more of a brushy area behind the tree stand, again, to try to funnel the deer, not right under my stand, but about 20 yards away, 15 yards away. So there you go, hinge cut fail. These hard maples are hard to hinge cut. They're like brittle. So you win some, you lose some. It also looks like I didn't hit those trees. I also didn't hit those trees like I wanted to. I should have went more to the right. So it didn't slow the rate of fall either. I had it hinged that way, perpendicular to those trees, but it reached that point and kind of laid itself to the left and fell off. But for right now, that's creating a lot of food. It's also making an area where when I hinge cut these, I'll have a soft place to fall them into the top of this tree. And I can use this for firewood. And it let in light to the forest floor. So those are all good things. The only bad thing is it's not going to stay alive. But the most important thing on hinge cut is not actually to get that tree. I mean, you're cutting it down to get that tree to stay alive, but the most important thing is to get the sunlight to the forest floor, and you get more regeneration and stem count and food where the deer can get at it. So now here's that tree I just cut down, and I have this big maple marked. This one is rotted inside, and at the bottom you can see where I kicked the snow away. And I have an oak, a red oak right next to it. So by opening up the canopy around here, I also have a couple more trees marked that aren't very good. That'll open up the canopy around that oak, and it's a nice big one. It'll help produce more acorns by getting more sunlight to it. And right behind me is we're getting close to the other food plot. You can see that open area right there. So my goal is to just miss this oak tree and drop that. I got a nice little spot where I can drop that maple tree. All right, We got it to go through that spot. I brushed up against that maple, but no damage done, and missed this oak tree. You can see that this tree is a heavy leaning tree, so I have to cut it in a certain way so it doesn't barber chair. So I'll try to, you have to plunge cut, a back cut, leave a back strap of wood, and then after you face cut it, plunge cut the back cut, leave a back strap of wood, and then cut that little part, and that'll release the tree. I'm at the spot and I already see a deer here. So this is the next day after I cut all these trees. Hopefully you can hear me. But I'm gonna spook them out of here. I got the dogs and stuff, and I'm gonna come in here and cut more. So, but we'll see how many deer are in here. So there was 6 deer. One was bedded down and the other ones were feeding. And I saw some tracks coming from an area where they cross during the winter, and it's a good spot, confirms where I know they're bedding across this swamp, and they're taking the path of least resistance across a small skinny area. So it's going to be a great place to put a tree stand. There's also a hemlock right there, which makes it even better because I'll always have cover even when the leaves drop. Those deer got up and they ran toward the hemlocks. They like to bed in the hemlocks because there's less snow underneath the cover of those trees, so it's easier for them to walk and stuff. That's a good bedding area for them. It's gonna hit this tree, but I don't think that's gonna be a soft enough landing. Well, maybe. That tree might live, which would be really good. This is a perfect little tunnel spot under here. If that tree lives, then we'll get a bunch of growth off the trunk coming up. It'll thicken this up really nice. So the other tree I knew was going to die. That's why I landed it on that hinge cut, because that hinge cut did not look good. So, but it stayed up on top of the stump. I don't know how long it's going to stay up on that stump. Hopefully it's still together. But that softened the landing, and also brushing it through the side of this maple tree softened that landing. So we have a decent amount of wood still left on that tree. So I think it will live. We'll see. If that tree does not live, the one good thing is it'll provide a spot where I can drop other trees on top of that and soften their landing. As an added bonus, it took down that yellow birch, which will stay alive. It naturally hinge cut it. So I believe deer really like yellow birch, if I remember right. So that's a good thing. And opening up the canopy. So here's my other food plot, the one that we're going to from the one that we started at. And I'll pan over and you can see the devastation. The tree stand is right there. The other food plot is quite a ways that way, about 150 yards. So I've cut most of the big trees between the food plots, and now I'm going to cut just along the edge of this food plot. And I'm going to connect that with a transition cut that I started 3 years ago. And that's just going to drop into the hemlocks over here. If you can see the very dark brush here, those are all a big hemlock forest. So hopefully the deer will come out of that area and follow this transition and jump into either this food plot, or depending on what I have available in the food plots at a certain time of year. During deer season, let's say this is clover, they'll bypass it, and I have brassica on the other side, then hopefully they'll follow this transition area past my tree stand. Okay, I'm almost finished out here cutting for this weekend, and I'll pan around. I'm actually in that tree stand I was talking about. I'll pan around and give you a high point of view of this area, because it doesn't look as thick when you get above it. But I don't know how many trees I've cut, probably close to 40. And the deer are in here feeding, which is a good thing. The snow is well over my knee, and it's very packy. It's above 30 degrees right now. It's like 35 or something like that. So it's really hard to get through. But you can maybe see you'd see my four-wheeler there. That's right on the edge of a food plot. And now if I pan directly on the opposite end, I have a food plot right in that zone there. So I transition cut off of a logging road coming up here, and then directing it just along this edge and past the tree stand. So you can see these are all the big trees that I cut, the ones to let in all the light. So I've really opened up the canopy. You can see what the canopy used to look like. So that's going to thicken this strip of woods, which it's about a 45-yard strip, I would say. And I'm hoping that the deer will follow this edge and pass this stand. I'm going to make that line of movement happen by hinge cutting these medium-sized and smaller trees now. I tried to hinge cut some bigger ones, and some of them look like they'll work. Other ones, there's not enough holding wood still on it. I also had a few hang-ups, like this tree here, hung up in another tree, so I'll just have to avoid that area until it falls down, or try to drop another tree into it, which I might do that. But so a couple of these medium-sized trees here, those I'll hinge right over the top of this. So I want this area to be a no-go zone. So I want those deer to travel out here, about 15 yards away. But I have a ton of food on the ground now for the deer. And I like this area right before the food plot. It's really open there. That might be a good staging area. I'll try to thicken it right before the food plot by hinge cutting the trees and lay them edge feather that food plot there so they can't really see into it. And also plant some pine trees along that edge too. I'm also going to plant some pine trees just dotting this too, just to further thicken up this area. But I'll get down and I'll show you what this looks like on the ground and how much it's thickened up the woods already. There's the four-wheeler. There's the tree stand. And you can see all the debris on the ground. And you can't see through the woods now as well as you could before if you turn this way. That's going to let in a ton of light, and there'll be a bunch of new growth coming up. Now is the time to do this stuff. In the winter when the deer are hungry, and keep these deer alive and fed well. All right, till next time. Almost crotch deep.